Introduction to Cloud Computing, Migration Basics. As an IT manager and as somebody probably familiar with cloud computing, you might have skipped our first CBT nugget, which described a little bit about how cloud computing works. Well, in this one, we are going to still keep it at a more basic level, but what we are going to do is talk about three primary reasons why you would use cloud computing as a small business owner and as an IT manager. A rather straightforward approach here in our CBT Nugget today. That is, first off, to talk about some of the basics of why you'd want to use email on the cloud and some things to watch out for. We'll also take a look at data storage and what that means to you as an IT manager or as a small business owner. And then finally, we'll take a quick peek at applications, sometimes called software as a service, and some of the things that you need to look out for that when you are making that migration to the cloud computing environment. Probably the easiest thing that we can do from an IT perspective is to move our organization from a locally based email system into a cloud computing or into the cloud. And part of the reason why you'd want to do that, and part of the reason why we're doing that, is going to be, of course, cost. That's the number one. Second, ease of migration. Next is going to be training and the ease and how easy it is to do some training for it. And finally, and also very important, is accessibility. Now, when I talk about costs, think about this. Let's say you're a small company and you have anywhere between 10 to 15 users. You can have more, you can maybe have a little bit less. And you want to set up email, or you already have some email set up, but someone's saying, hey, let's go ahead and let's do Exchange, and we can run that. And so you're looking at buying yourself a nice Exchange server and putting on some licenses and getting everyone set up for email within the system. Now your cost is going to run, at least for the server itself, I'll put that right here, it's going to run you about $5,000, and that's for the server. And that's a decent server with the operating system on it and getting that all set up. Then, speaking of getting it set up, you are going to need to, hire probably somebody to come in, unless you have an Exchange specialist at your place, or maybe you're doing your own IT, or you're a business owner and you want to do this. You can hire a consulting firm or a network installation firm to come in. And quite frankly, the average cost is about $150 an hour, and I would say to set everything up, put the server in, the cabling, make sure everything is good to go, you're looking at about 35 hours or so of labor. So that's going to run us about $4,500 for installation. And then, of course, there's those user licenses. Those user licenses for each person that's actually utilizing Exchange. You got to pay for that when they're accessing the domain and all the other thing, and working all that out. So, and they run about $80 a license, I do believe, is what the latest price is. Now, of course, I'm ballparking it. It might be a little bit less, or who knows, it might be a little bit more on that. So let's say, even with 15 people running at $80 a license, you're looking at a good $1,200 for user licenses. So licenses. Versus something like Gmail, or the Google Premier version of Gmail, where for all that, and plus Google Docs and the sites and everything else that you get to use, $50 per user per year. Now look at that. At 15 users, if we're running that, that's pretty easy. 15 times 50 is $750. So that would be a grand total of $750 for your cost. And that would be for the cloud right here. So the cloud's going to cost you about $750 a year for your users versus that initial $5,000, the $4,500, the $1,200 in licenses. And of course, as we'll see in Google Docs and Google Premiere, when you get access to all these things, you get applications, you get the mail, you get a whole bunch of other things for that $50 a year. So from a cost standpoint, that works really well. Then there's the ease of migration. Now with 10 to 15 users by hand, as we'll see in the video where we'll show you how to set up your email through the Google Premiere, it's very simple. You just type in the username, password, it will mail it to them. They'll be able to access it. If you want to let them change their username, or not username, their password, it'll allow it to do that. It's, very simple, very easy to migrate. Plus, if you have a larger group, let's say you have maybe 100 plus in your medium bit-sized business, you can use CSV files on the migration. And then there's the training, of course, which is where we'd have to say, well, how hard is it for somebody to get used to utilizing a cloud-based computing email system? Well, all of them have a web interface because you're using a web page, but the look and feel of these are very similar to what you would find like in a Microsoft Outlook. In fact, you can even use Microsoft Outlook to access your Gmail accounts. A lot of times when you buy laptops and you're buying the OEMs and they come with the Microsoft Office, which I'm a big fan of since I do the CBT Nugget series on them, you might get the Microsoft Office on it, so they already have Outlook and they're used to the interface. Now all you're doing is adding their account to it from a Gmail standpoint, and boom, they're using the same exact tool application that they have been using. So the training is very, very simple. Plus, hey, not to pump this series, but if you want to gain them access to my end user training on how to use Gmail, you can use that. So there you go, a little bit of a plug for that. Accessibility, very, very easy to access because all you need is a web browser. Web browser, set up, you point it to that, they click on it, you can even bookmark it, and that way they can access it very simply. You can even use different URLs to get there. You can change the URL that something's a little simpler, and then of course have that point to the appropriate cloud computing resource that you're using. So very simple, straightforward. Email is one of those things that as you try to migrate over to it, very cost effective, easy to migrate, good training, easy to access, and that's the important thing. Now when you start talking about data or data storage out there in a cloud environment or cloud storage, most people are going to think of what is called the public cloud. The public cloud. Now the public cloud are going to be organizations and services like Amazon's S3, which we have a CBT Nugget talking about how you can set that up. It might also be talking about some of the smaller storage places out there. Things like iDisk, Carbonite, which is secure backup storage. And these are smaller ones that are typically you're not going to have a huge amount of data space out there, whereas Amazon's, obviously you can get into the petabyte type of environment and all this data that's out there. And that's typically what you're going to do is you're going to be, if these people are all down here and here's your company, so we say your company, and you're going to be, of course, sending your data files out into the cloud. Now, out here in the cloud, you've got servers at Amazon or Apple's MobileMe site, which is where iDisk is, Carbonite, and so they're all stored out here somewhere in the mysterious cloud. Now, there are some companies, even mid-sized businesses, that might not be comfortable with that, but does that mean that you have to scrap the whole cloud computing environment? No, it doesn't have to be public. There's also now a lot of people out there that are now starting to offer private clouds. Private clouds. And this can be anything from EMC, There's Periscale, Bycast, some of the other ones that are out that. And whether you can truly call it a cloud or not, or whether it's just renamed and rebranded, the essentials are going to be a cloud storage system is going to be kind of like this. So right here, part of your company, you will have set up right here, you'll have some servers out here. So maybe you have one server here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 servers, okay? And they're all running x86 server types. You're going to have your own drives, probably eSATA drives. Maybe have about 4 or 5 to each one, maybe some kind of RAID array. But the important thing to think about is that for your users to really truly create it as a cloud, is to them there will be virtual hard drives out there that they can save their space, and you can even group those by individuals or groups. You can say, well, these people are going to be in one group, these people are going to be another, and then you've got the of course they have their local hard drives, but then over here you would have the P drive that would be for the public relations team, and then you might have the S drive, which would be, of course, your Salesforce. So you've got your two groups. They're all accessing, and of course to them it just looks like they're going out and sending their data, and they have the ability to get it down. And that would be more of your private cloud. And again, these are companies out there that are offering this. The biggest one I know of, and it's going to be around, I know, for a while after I record this CBT Nugget, I'm pretty confident, is EMC, which is one of the big data storage things. Now the cloud storage, of course, is also going to have some software running in the background that's going to handle any drive failures. It's going to keep your data available to your applications and your users, and that's going to be part of the cloud environment that you're going to do. So the nice thing is because it's using that type of software, it's not like the old school with the RAID arrays and you had to stripe everything and get all that stuff done. Instead, this is all handled within the software, this cloud software that will help you get your data arranged and set up and ready to go. Now, there are some obviously bells and whistles that you can get with this, and sometimes maybe you don't even want to do that. This is typically really good for things that are not very structured, things like drawings, office documents, perhaps pictures, things like that. Just remember, though, a private cloud is going to be storing copies of the data on multiple nodes, which means you have to use a lot more disk space than you would with simple, some of your RAID 5 or RAID 6 systems. Of course, those are more expensive, so then, there's a trade-off there. So just something to consider when you're looking at it from the cloud computing from a data side. Now, some of you might be saying, Chris, isn't email an application? Well, yes, I think it is. I think it's also a communications platform as well. So that's why I kind of separated email out of the applications. Now, the good news is with applications, though, in a cloud environment, you might say, well, what can I do in a cloud environment that I can do really well, that I can save money and do as efficiently as I do if I had to buy individual licensed software for everybody here? Well, number one, from a standpoint of costing, your applications are going to be a lot less than they are if you have to buy the licenses. However, one thing to consider is that they are stripped down. And when I say stripped down, I'm not saying that they don't have a lot of functionality, but a lot of the real high-end bells and whistles. I mean, you're not going to, with Google Docs, you are not going to get the same PowerPoint tools and transitions and everything that you would get in a standard PowerPoint, but their presentation software will definitely allow you to at least make a good basic bulleted list, move from slide to slide, and embed pictures and video clips and some things like that, and links. So you do get functionality, but you don't get a lot of the bells and whistles and buzzers. The other thing is that with applications, you need to realize that the application is not local. In other words, if you're using small business server or some other thing where you're running your Office products over there, or even if people are running their Office products down on their own laptops, while you have offline capabilities and you can save copies of it, all of your applications are happening up here in the cloud. So they are not local, and so the applications are going to be going up. So, and that's kind of neat because for the people anyway, all of these applications, whether it's Zoho, whether it's Google Docs, and things that we're going to show you, they all have that autosave capability, and they're constantly up here saving copies, saving drafts of whatever you're doing. Plus, the nice thing is with these applications is that it creates what I call improved collaboration. Because instead of, as I said in the first CBT Nugget video on this series, it's not like I have a document here and then I need to send a copy here, 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 and then they all make their changes and then they all send them back to me, and then I have to, look at them and, look at what's happening. We're doing that. There is one copy up here. And that copy, of course, is the one that everyone is making changes to, and then you can choose to whether approve or deny those and things like that. Also works with Microsoft's live workspaces and things like that. So improved collaboration. And so for applications, if you are looking at migrating over to this, just understand that there will be, of course, your users, your end users, are going to be a little wary of the fact that they're losing some of the functionality. But if you can show them that the overall functionality is there, that even though they lost the ability to maybe add something to it, like in a presentation, that you can still, as you're going to find out with some of the applications, use like a PowerPoint down here and then place the document up here for people to make the changes as well. So there's still those advantages, and you haven't left that behind. And again, there's always going to be specialized software that you're going to be using. The good news is that as the cloud computing improves and more companies are starting to utilize this environment, you're going to find more and more applications with increased functionality, and that will eventually either be really close or match the current applications and software that you're running locally on your own computer. So for many of you, this was your first CBT Nugget in this series because you skipped the first one. But for the most part, we ran over some of the migration basics. Why you as an IT manager are going to be moving to this cloud computing environment, and the good news about it to kind of get you ready for some of the programs and kind of give you a background. The first thing we looked at, of course, was email. Some of the things to remember: make sure you have your usernames and everything set up, ready to go. The nice thing is that most of these email cloud computing, like a Google Premier, is going to be using the same interfaces that they're very familiar with. Data, we have to watch out whether we are going to be doing a public cloud system where we insert the data up into the cloud, or do we create a private cloud where we use the same similar types of software and structure that you would use in cloud computing, only you do it locally using your own equipment and your own networked environment, which is possible to do. Then of course there's the applications, and that's where you can use things like a data processor, and you can use a word processor, and you can use a spreadsheet program and a presentation software. It won't be like an Office product with all the bells and whistles, but it still has good functionality, and it's going to enable you to save money and to also alleviate some of the problems you have with all of those applications having to reside on a local desktop or laptop. I hope you enjoyed the training today, and I'd like to thank you for joining us.